Nebraskans getting a chance to weigh in on a proposal which would hold parents and guardians responsible for harm children cause with their parents' unsecured guns. Omaha Senator John Kavanaugh introduced LB 957. Now, if passed, the law would hold parents and guardians strictly liable for certain gun crimes under their children under the age of 14 commit in circumstances. This would only apply if a gun is not properly secured and the adult has reason to believe their kid might try to get hold of the gun without permission. If the child goes on to show the gun off or hurt someone with it, the adult may face a misdemeanor. Supporters see this as a common sense measure to keep kids safe.
As parents, we are responsible for protecting our children. When we bring a child home for the first time, we put plugs in all the outlets and locks on all the cabinets. This bill reminds us that part of having a firearm in a home with children means ensuring that they will not be able to access it.
The Deputy Douglas County Attorney spoke against the bill. She says her office supports the intent, but argues it would make gun injuries to children caused by parental negligence, much harder to prosecute.
Much of the language in the different subsections in LB 957 is problematic as currently written. A lot of the terms are too vague or ambiguous, and that would leave far too many loopholes for this bill to be effective if it was passed.
Senator John Kavanaugh acknowledged the Deputy County Attorney's concerns over potential loopholes. He says he'll work on changes to the bill to address those concerns.
Now, Iowa has a similar law already on the books. In 2024, 2 Michigan parents were sentenced to a decade in prison after their teenage son killed 4 students in a school shooting. The couple was accused of not securing a newly purchased gun and ignoring warning signs that their son's deteriorating mental health.